It begins with a mystery that seems impossible. 9 experienced hikers walk into the frozen Ural Mountains. Weeks later, all of them are dead, and even today, you cannot say with complete certainty why. You are standing in the winter of 1959, deep inside the Soviet Union. The Cold War shapes every aspect of life. Information is controlled. Secrets are common. Yet among all the mysteries to emerge from that era, few have captured the imagination, quite like what happened on the eastern slope of a mountain, known by the local Mansi people as Kholat Syakhl. The name translates roughly to Dead Mountain. At first, that sounds like the kind of detail added later by storytellers trying to make a mystery more dramatic. But it was real, and soon it would become terrifyingly appropriate. The group was led by a 23-year-old engineering student named Igor Dyatlov. He and his companions were not reckless adventurers. They were experienced hikers, skilled skiers, and members of a demanding expedition program. Most were students or graduates of the Ural Polytechnic Institute. Several had extensive winter survival experience. Their goal was straightforward. They planned to complete a difficult ski expedition through the northern Ural Mountains and return with documentation proving their achievement. In late January, the group began its journey. There were originally 10 members. One participant, Yuri Yudin, became ill early in the expedition and turned back. At the time, he felt disappointed. Years later, he would realize that his illness had saved his life. The remaining 9 continued into the wilderness. For several days, everything appeared normal. They kept journals, they took photographs, they joked with one another. The surviving images show young people smiling, laughing, and enjoying the challenge of the journey. Nothing suggests fear. Nothing suggests danger. Then, sometime during the night of February 1st, or the early hours of February 2nd, something happened. Something powerful enough to drive all 9 people from their tent into one of the harshest environments on Earth. When the hikers failed to return on schedule, concern gradually grew. Search teams were eventually organized. Rescuers followed the route and finally discovered the campsite. What they found raised more questions than answers. The tent was still standing. It had partially collapsed beneath snow, but it remained visible. Inside were boots, clothing, food, cameras, and personal belongings. The hikers had apparently abandoned nearly everything needed for survival. Even stranger, investigators found that the tent had been cut open from the inside. Instead of using the entrance, the occupants appeared to have sliced their way out. You immediately face an unsettling question. What could make experienced winter hikers leave shelter in temperatures approaching -30 degrees Celsius? The tracks leading away from the tent deepened the mystery. Investigators observed footprints descending the slope. Some appeared barefoot. Others seemed to be wearing only socks. A few wore a single shoe. The group had not run chaotically in every direction. Instead, they appeared to have moved away together. Nearly a kilometer from the tent, beneath a cedar tree, rescuers discovered the first bodies. Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonishenko lay near the remains of a small fire. Both showed signs of severe hypothermia. Branches high above suggested someone had climbed the tree. Perhaps they were attempting to see the tent. Perhaps they were searching for danger. No one knows. Between the cedar tree and the tent, 3 more bodies were found. Igor Dyatlov, Zinaida Kolmogorova, Rustem Slobodin. Their positions suggested they had been trying to return to the campsite. It looked as though they had escaped something, regrouped, and then attempted the impossible journey back through darkness and freezing wind. Months later, after snow melted, searchers found the remaining 4 hikers in a ravine. Their deaths introduced another layer of mystery. Unlike the others, Several of these victims had suffered severe internal injuries, broken ribs, massive chest trauma, a crushed skull, yet there were few external wounds. The force required seemed extraordinary. One investigator compared the injuries to those seen in major vehicle collisions. Then came details that fueled decades of speculation. One victim was missing her tongue. Others were missing soft tissue around the face. Some clothing showed traces of radioactivity. The official Soviet investigation eventually concluded that the hikers died because of an unknown compelling force. That phrase alone helped transform the incident into legend. An unknown compelling force. What did that mean? Over the decades, countless theories emerged. Some were reasonable, others were extraordinary. Perhaps you have heard claims involving secret military weapons. Others suggested escaped prisoners. Some blamed spies. Others proposed extraterrestrial visitors. The mystery became so famous that almost every imaginable explanation eventually appeared. Yet most theories struggle against the evidence. There was no convincing sign of an attack by another group, no evidence of a large-scale fight, no clear indication that anyone else had been present. For years, researchers tried to understand what could have caused the hikers to flee. One important voice was the Russian investigator Lev Ivanov, who originally worked on aspects of the case. Later in life, he expressed uncertainty about the official explanation and hinted that unusual atmospheric phenomena may have been observed in the region. His comments added fuel to public fascination. But fascination is not evidence. As modern researchers revisited the case, more scientific explanations emerged. One of the most influential investigations involved Swiss researcher Johann Gaume and avalanche specialist Alexander Puzrin. In 2021, their study proposed a delayed slab avalanche scenario. Using modern snow mechanics and terrain modeling, they argued that a small avalanche could have struck the tent hours after it was pitched. Such an event might explain why the hikers rapidly evacuated. It might also explain some of the severe injuries. Importantly, this theory did not require a giant avalanche, leaving obvious dramatic traces. Instead, it suggested a more localized snow collapse. Not everyone agrees with the conclusion. But it demonstrated that modern science could address details previously considered impossible to explain. Another significant contribution came from Swedish-Russian researcher Anna Matvieva, whose extensive examination of witness statements, documents, and environmental conditions helped clarify numerous misconceptions that had accumulated around the story. Many popular claims turned out to be exaggerated, mistranslated, or removed from their original context. Even the missing tongue, often presented as evidence of something sinister, may have resulted from natural decomposition processes occurring in the ravine environment. As you examine the evidence, a pattern begins to emerge. The mystery remains real, but some of its most sensational elements become less mysterious. Extreme cold, darkness, wind, snow movement, confusion, injury, human survival decisions made under extraordinary stress. These factors can create outcomes that seem almost impossible when viewed decades later. Yet important questions remain unanswered. Why did the group leave exactly when they did? What sequence of events unfolded after they reached the forest? Why did some survive longer than others? How did individual decisions shape the final outcome? The truth may never be reconstructed minute by minute. Nature rarely leaves complete records. What makes the Dyatlov Pass incident endure is not simply the deaths themselves. It is the gap between what you know and what you wish you knew. The photographs stop, the diaries end, the witnesses are gone. All that remains are footprints fading into snow and a collection of clues frozen in time. More than 60 years later, Researchers still study the evidence. Documentaries continue to appear. Books continue to be written. New analyses continue to challenge old assumptions. The mystery survives because it exists at the boundary between explanation and uncertainty. You can build a convincing case for natural causes. You can identify likely sequences of events. You can dismiss many of the more fantastic claims. But you cannot stand in that tent on that freezing night and know exactly what those 9 hikers experienced. And perhaps that is why the story refuses to disappear. Because every generation looks at the same evidence and asks the same question. What happened on Dead Mountain? The answer grows clearer with each new investigation, yet never becomes complete. And so the Dyatlov Pass Incident remains what it has always been, a mystery that seems impossible. Thanks for watching Mark's Cave Stories. If you enjoyed this mystery, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another fascinating story. Until next time, keep questioning the unknown, because sometimes the greatest mysteries are the ones that are still waiting to be solved.